السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. Respected friends and elders, Allah Ta'ala, He has introduced us into this society, into this community, and Allah Ta'ala has brought us here, and He has sent us into this world for the wisdom of Allah Ta'ala, whatever He knows best. And while He has sent us here, He has commanded us to live in such a manner that we turn towards Him for everything, and we turn away from everything else. That's the definition of tawakkul, that we are independent from everyone else, and we depend solely on Allah Ta'ala. That we turn to Him for everything, and we turn away from everything else. Recently, there was a person who's been constantly sending me videos on tawakkul and the importance of tawakkul. And tawakkul is something that, yes, all of us understand what tawakkul is. We understand the definition of tawakkul, but the reality is that when we are faced with issues and challenges, we forget our tawakkul and we turn towards everything else. So I thought, especially as those reminders have been beneficial to me, I thought it'd be good to also remind myself and all of us again about the reality of tawakkul and how to internalize tawakkul, and how to internalize the trust in Allah Ta'ala. Right? That Allah Ta'ala should be the individual, the being that we trust. And it should not be anyone else. We should turn away our focus from everything else. Allah Ta'ala, He commands us to create this type of society that turns away from everything else and turns specifically and only to Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala speaks about the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. He says that through the mercy of Allah Ta'ala, you've been kind to them. Meaning kindness to humanity is a mercy from Allah Ta'ala. Then He says, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظًا لَنْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ. Right? He said, Allah Ta'ala says to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ. He says that if you were harsh and mean-hearted, لَنْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. They would run away from you. Meaning the people, they would leave your side. But the fact is that Allah Ta'ala made the Prophet ﷺ very kind in nature, and that's why people flocked towards him, because he was a kind individual. Thereafter he says, فَعْفُ عَنْهُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ. Forgive them and overlook them, and ask Allah Ta'ala for forgiveness for the people's sins. And then he says, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. And also you should make mashwara with them. You should consult with the Sahaba, consult with the people. فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. And once you have resolved on, or once you committed to a decision, فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Then you have reliance on Allah Ta'ala. So essentially this is the pathway or the guidance that Allah Ta'ala gives us for every single decision that we want to make. Initially, we must make mashwara and then make a decision and have tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala. This is the pathway, this is the guide that Allah Ta'ala has given to us. So Allah Ta'ala speaks about this, and He essentially there are three types of humans. There are three types of humans. One type of individual is that person who only adopts the means, only adopts the sabab, which is the means. So they go towards the means, and unfortunately the vast majority of us, including myself, we are amongst this category, that we adopt the means. Whenever we get sick, we go directly to the medicine or the doctor. Whenever we need some issue, we go directly to the lawyers. Whenever we want to get married, we go to someone else, for example. And whenever we want to have children, we go to the gynecologist, for example, and so on and so forth. Whenever we have any issue, we turn to humanity first. This is our issue. This is our problem. This is the first category of people. The second category of people is the person who has tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala, who is relying on Allah Ta'ala. who turns to Allah Ta'ala for all things. And this is, of course, the individual that you and I, we should strive to become. That we are individuals who always turn to Allah Ta'ala. Whenever we need anything, we turn to Allah Ta'ala. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said that even to the point that if a person needs shoelaces, they should turn to Allah Ta'ala. And we must build that reliance on Allah Ta'ala. We must build that relationship with Allah Ta'ala. You know, just as a child builds that relationship with their parents, whenever they need something, they go to their parents. They turn to their parents for anything and everything. They know because their parents can provide for them. When they're hungry, they turn to their parents. When they want something, they turn to their parents. Money, food, clothing, anything, they turn to their parents. And us, we are muhtaj, we are in need. We are in need of Allah Ta'ala. So we should always turn to Allah Ta'ala for everything. And this is the second category of people. The third category of people are individuals who have a false notion of tawakkul. They have a false notion of tawakkul. They believe that I will not adopt the means and I will have tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala. Meaning I will go against the means. I will go against the system of Allah Ta'ala. And this is not how Sharia commands us. This is not how the Prophet ﷺ commands us. A man once asked the Prophet ﷺ, very famous hadith, that should I tie my camel and then have tawakkul? Or should I leave my camel loose and then have tawakkul? Rasulullah ﷺ, he said that you should tie your camel, then you should have tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala. Meaning you adopt the means and then you have tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala. That Allah Ta'ala will fulfill, Allah Ta'ala will protect the animal. Similarly, that we adopt the means, we go towards the means, and then we have tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala. This third category of people, this is not the real concept of tawakkul. That we just we ignore the means, and we turn to Allah Ta'ala only, without doing our part. Yes, it's possible. It's definitely possible that Allah Ta'ala can go against His own system. Of course, Allah Ta'ala has a system in place. Allah Ta'ala has a system in place. Yes, Allah Ta'ala can send down gold raining from the skies. Yes, Allah Ta'ala can throw gold in your feet. Yes, Allah Ta'ala can make it rain money. Yes, Allah Ta'ala can do all of that. But this is not the system of Allah Ta'ala. Umar radiallahu anhu, he would get very upset at these types of people. The type of people who would have false hopes in Allah Ta'ala. And he would say, لا يقعدن أحدكم عن طلب الرزق ويقول اللهم ارزقني وقد علم أن السماء لا تمطر ذهبا ولا فضة. He says, none of you should sit at home and wait for the rizq of Allah Ta'ala and make dua to Allah, oh Allah, grant me sustenance. Whereas you're sitting at home. Umar is saying that you should not sit at home and wait for the rizq of Allah Ta'ala to come. You should not wait for money to come while sitting at home. But rather, you go and you earn. Why? Because Umar's statement, he says that all of us, we know and realize that the sky doesn't rain gold and silver. It doesn't rain gold and silver. And so therefore, you must go and work. You must make your livelihood. You must go out there and you must take the means. And then you have tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala. So these are the three types of individuals. And we should strive to be amongst those individuals who are relied on Allah Ta'ala, but also adopt the means. Yes, this dunya is full of asbab. This dunya is a dunya of asbab. A world which is filled with causes and effects. You do something, then an effect happens. Then there's the result of it. But if we don't do anything, then how can we expect the results from Allah Ta'ala? So it's important that we adopt the means and we have tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala. We learn about this. We look at the lives of the prophets, our role models, our examples. We look at their lives. We look at the Prophet Musa alayhi salam. We understand all the circumstances that he underwent. We understand all of the challenges that Musa alayhi salam went through. All of the difficulties from birth onwards, all of the challenges that he faced. And then when he was commanded to take Bani Israel and run away from Egypt. So they left Egypt, and in front of them is the river, and behind him is Fir'aun. And so at that point, the people around him, Bani Israel, despite seeing all the miracles of Allah Ta'ala, they say, now, inna lamudrakun, now definitely we're done for. We're done. Now the people of Fir'aun, they will catch us. Why? There's nowhere else to go. In front of us is the water, and behind us is Fir'aun. So we have nowhere else to run. And Musa alayhi salam makes a statement. He says, قَالَ كَلَّا إِنَّ مَعْيَ رَبِّي سَيَهْدِينِ. He says, no, no, never. My Rabb is with me. And despite everything being against him, Allah Ta'ala commanded him, he adopted the means. Yes, could Allah Ta'ala not have destroyed the entire army of Fir'aun in Egypt? Yes, of course, Allah Ta'ala could have done that. Yes, Allah Ta'ala could have destroyed all of them through the various punishments Allah Ta'ala sent. As we know that Allah Ta'ala tested the people of Fir'aun in many different ways. And despite that, they chose to disbelieve. But Allah Ta'ala could have destroyed the entire, Fir'aun and his army in Egypt itself. Allah Ta'ala commanded Musa alayhi salam, you should make your place. You should lead. You adopt the means as well. You should do your part. Do your part. And then you'll see the help of Allah Ta'ala. So then Allah Ta'ala said, no, you will never, Musa alayhi salam, he says that Allah Ta'ala will never abandon me. Inna ma'ya rabbi. My Rabb is always with me. Sayahdeen, he will guide me. And he's alone there, right? He speaks about from his own perspective. Right? He feels alone. Right? The Bani Israel, they're trying to abandon him. Despite all of the miracles that he's shown them, and through the will of Allah Ta'ala, despite that, they choose to disbelieve. Or they choose to not have full reliance on Allah Ta'ala. And so then, of course, Allah Ta'ala saves the Bani Israel and Allah grounds the people of Fir'aun. And so, Allah Ta'ala quotes in the Quran, He says, وَأَنْجَيْنَا مُوسَى وَمَنْ مَعَهُ أَجْمَعِينَ. He says that we saved Musa. We saved Musa. The primary purpose or the primary individual who Allah Ta'ala is saving is who? Musa alayhi salam. And وَمَنْ مَعَهُ. And those people were with him. Why? Primarily because of Musa alayhi salam. Because of the tawakkul that Musa alayhi salam had on Allah Ta'ala. That's the reliance that we must have. So we adopt the means and then we have tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala. From our own Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We know the story of his hijrah, his migration to Medina. We all know this very well. And when he was traveling with Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, we know the story. It's such an amazing story. In the life of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they went around. Instead of going directly to Medina, they took the longer route. They took the longer route to Medina. So they're essentially going the opposite route. The people of Quraysh, they hired the expert trackers. And the expert trackers, now they're following, and again, there's an elaborate story, how the Prophet he sent people, or he had a person who was supposed to cover the tracks. This is the desert. This is the desert of Arabia. And so he's sending people to cover the tracks. Despite that, the trackers, they were able to track the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr all the way to the cave of Taw. They tracked them all the way to the cave, to the mouth of the cave. To the point that Abu Bakr said, Ya Rasulullah, if they look down at their feet, they will see us. If they look down towards their feet, they will see us. The people of Quraysh, they reached all the way to the mouth of the cave, and at that point, they were not able to find it. Can you imagine what type of tawakkul is this? And Allah Ta'ala speaks about this, and He says that فَقَدْ نَصَرَهُ اللَّهُ إِذْ أَخْرَجَهُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا ثاني اثنين هما في الغار إذ يقول لصاحبه لا تحزن إن الله معنا. That remember when Allah Ta'ala assisted the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the disbelievers, they came out and they were chasing the two individuals, meaning Abu Bakr and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. إذ هما في الغار, when they were in the cave, غار الثور. إذ يقول لصاحبه, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to his companion, لا تحزن, don't fear, إن الله معنا. Allah Ta'ala is with us. Allah Ta'ala is with us. And so that's exactly what happened. The experts were able to track them to the mouth of the cave, and then they were lost. Allah Ta'ala did not give them the ability to see them despite being at the mouth of the cave. So this is the reliance that you and I, we must follow. The reliance of the Prophet ﷺ, the reliance of Abu Bakr, the reliance of the previous prophets. How much tawakkul they had in Allah Ta'ala. That Allah has not changed. There isn't a different Allah. The same Allah Ta'ala is there. The same Allah. So we turn to that Allah Ta'ala for all of our affairs. Understand, right, that those individuals, those of us, when we leave our affairs in the hands of people, we will always be despondent. We will always be actually in despair. When we leave our affairs in the hands of Allah Ta'ala, we'll never be despondent. If we leave our affairs in the hands of the people, we'll be at loss. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that من نزلت به فاقة فأنزلها بالناس لم تسد فاقة. He said that anyone has an issue and they bring that issue to humanity, You have a problem, you bring it to humanity, that problem will never totally disappear. That problem will never totally disappear. But at the same time, وَمَنْ نَزَلَتْ بِهِ فَاقَةٌ فَأَنْزَلَهَا بِاللَّهِ فَيُوشِكُ اللَّهُ لَهُ بِرِزْقٍ عَاجِلٍ أَوْ آجِلٍ. He says that someone who faces an issue and he takes it to Allah Ta'ala, he takes it to the court of Allah Ta'ala. So Allah Ta'ala will help him either now or later on. Allah Ta'ala will bless him with some sustenance either now, either immediately Allah will help him, or in due time Allah will help them. So it's either now or a bit later. Either Allah will take care of it immediately. You make that dua, you step out, Allah Ta'ala immediately takes care of it. Or it'll take some time. Sometimes Allah Ta'ala puts us through some trials so that we can come back to Allah Ta'ala. So that we turn back to Allah Ta'ala. How many times we face some issue and then we're reminded of Allah Ta'ala. Some death happens in the family and then we're jolted back to reality. We're brought back to Allah Ta'ala that my life is very short. Or some issue happens, we're sick or something happens and then we take the Quran and we read the Quran. Or then we come to the masjid begging for Allah Ta'ala. This is Allah Ta'ala's reminder. Listen, come back. And so therefore, we must always come back to Allah Ta'ala and we must always give our affairs to Allah Ta'ala. And if we do that, then we'll find the help of Allah Ta'ala. Time and time again, Allah Ta'ala, He proves that Allah Ta'ala is the only one that can be trusted. Time and time again, Allah Ta'ala reminds us that He is the only being that can remove our issues. Over and over, Allah Ta'ala reminds us that there's no one else that can help us. There's no one else that can solve our issues. Only Allah Ta'ala can solve our issues. Rasulullah was commanded by Allah Ta'ala. He says, فَأَعْرِضْ عَنْهُ وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَكِيلًا. That you turn away from everyone else and have reliance on Allah Ta'ala. Meaning you turn your support, you turn your reliance away from everyone else and you rely solely on Allah Ta'ala. وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. You have tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala. وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَكِيلًا. Allah Ta'ala is enough. Allah Ta'ala suffices as a wakil. Allah Ta'ala suffices as a caretaker. Allah Ta'ala is the only being that can solve all our issues. Allah Ta'ala is the only being that can solve all of our issues. And so if everyone else abandons us, that's okay. So long as we don't abandon Allah Ta'ala, then we'll be okay. As Allah Ta'ala says, فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَقُلْ حَسْبِيَ اللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُوَ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَهُوَ رَبُّ الْعَرْشِ الْعَظِيمِ. He says that if they all turn away, it's okay. فَقُلْ حَسْبِيَ اللَّهُ. Allah Ta'ala is sufficient for me. Allah Ta'ala is sufficient for me. La ilaha illahu. Allah Ta'ala, there's none worthy of worship except Allah Ta'ala. There's no one who can compare to Allah Ta'ala. There's no one who has any similitude to the power that Allah Ta'ala has. No government, no authority has the power that Allah Ta'ala has. And so on Allah Ta'ala I should rely. On Allah Ta'ala I have tawakkul. On Allah Ta'ala. Abdullah ibn Abbas, he mentions that this statement, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. He says this statement, this was said by two people. He says the statement was made by Ibrahim alayhi salam. When he was thrown into the fire, Allah Ta'ala inspired him to make this statement. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. That Allah Ta'ala is sufficient for us. Allah Ta'ala is enough. I don't need anyone else. Wa ni'mal wakeel. What an amazing wakeel Allah Ta'ala is. What an amazing caretaker Allah Ta'ala is. I don't need anyone else. And as we know, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was asked, what was the most comfortable time of your life? And he said that was the time when I was in the fire. That was the most comfortable time of my life, when he was in the fire. Everything else burned away, except for Ibrahim alayhi salam. Allah Ta'ala made the fire cool for Ibrahim alayhi salam. That's the first person. Then the second person was the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When the people, they gathered around, some scholars, they mentioned it was regarding the Battle of Uhud. That when the Muslims were outnumbered 3-1. Again, Muslims are outnumbered 3-1. Not only that, Muslims are always outnumbered. Muslims are always outnumbered. Remember this. Muslims are always outnumbered. Right? The vast majority will always be non-Muslims. Throughout history, throughout time. The vast majority of time, Muslims will always be outnumbered. But Muslims have something that others don't have. We have something, we have a belief in Allah Ta'ala that others don't have. Others may have shaitan, others may have other armies, but we have Allah Ta'ala. And that's what we must always remember. Right? So the people, shaitan tried to come and dissuade individual. He tried to come and discourage the Prophet ﷺ. And so he said إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَاخْشَوْهُمْ. He says, look, the people they've gathered for you. They've gathered to attack you. They've gathered to destroy you. فَاخْشَوْهُمْ. Fear humanity. Fear the people. So the Prophet ﷺ, فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا. Allah Ta'ala says that Allah Ta'ala increased them in their iman, the Sahaba. Their iman only increased. And وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. And they said that Allah Ta'ala is sufficient for us. This is the statement that we must make. That when everyone else turns away from us, Allah Ta'ala is always there for us. And that's why we cannot abandon Allah. Allah has never abandoned us. Think about it. Allah has never abandoned us. Despite all of the sins that we've committed against Allah Ta'ala. How many times I've transgressed against Allah? How many times I've angered Allah Ta'ala? So many times I've done so many things that have made Allah Ta'ala angry. But despite that, Allah Ta'ala hasn't abandoned us. Allah Ta'ala hasn't abandoned us. Allah Ta'ala didn't say that, you know what? You've been doing so many haram, that's it. No more food for you. No more water for you. Nothing else. You can't eat, you can't drink. You can't breathe. Allah Ta'ala didn't say that to us. All of us sitting here, alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala has given us the ability to eat. Allah Ta'ala has continued to give us the ability to drink. Allah has allowed us to eat, drink. He has allowed us to live comfortably. Not only eat and drink, but live very comfortably, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. And Allah Ta'ala has kept us in very good health. Allah Ta'ala has kept us in very good situations, despite all of the things that we've done wrong. So we must always remember, we must always turn back to Allah Ta'ala, because Allah Ta'ala has never abandoned us. So we cannot abandon we cannot abandon Allah Ta'ala. Despite all of the sins that we do. Despite all of the sins that we do, never abandon Allah Ta'ala. Yes, we make mistakes. Yes, that's definitely true. As is the rest of humanity. Humanity, we are full of sin. But that doesn't mean we should abandon Allah Ta'ala. Yes, as humans, you'll make mistakes, but don't turn away from Allah Ta'ala. Go back to Allah Ta'ala. Continue to go back to Allah Ta'ala. That, Ya Allah, I'm sorry, I'll try my best. I'll try better, Ya Allah. Keep trying better. But don't give up on Allah Ta'ala. Don't become despondent in the hope of Allah Ta'ala. Don't become despondent in the mercy of Allah Ta'ala. But we constantly turn back to Allah Ta'ala. So now, there are a few signs and there are a few ways to understand, or what does tawakkul bring us? What's the benefit of tawakkul? The first is that we must understand, and this is the reality and this is the benefit of tawakkul, that we understand that Allah Ta'ala is the only being that can truly make things happen. Yes, other people, yes, this person may be the president, this person may be the leader, this person may be the boss, or whatever it may be, but this person is still very limited. They're also human beings at the end of the day. Allah Ta'ala is the only being that can do everything, that can turn our entire situation around. Allah Ta'ala is the only being who can change everything in our life to be much better. And again, if you count your problems, there are only a couple of problems anyway. Right? The amount of blessings that Allah Ta'ala has given us far outweigh the harms, or far outweigh the problems and the trials that we face. We have many, many, many more blessings from Allah Ta'ala. So the first is that Allah Ta'ala is the only being who can truly change our circumstances. The second is that when we hand over our affairs to Allah Ta'ala, we find this calmness. There's a certain calmness that comes when we hand over everything to Allah Ta'ala. Knowing that I've handed all of my affairs over to a being who can change everything. I've handed my issues to a being who can change all of it. So there's that calmness that comes to us. And of course, understanding. And the third is that we realize that this comfort and this Allah Ta'ala will take care of us. This is the different benefits of tawakkul. That we've raised our concerns to the greatest authority, right? The greatest superpower. If someone, for example, if someone were to raise their issues to a president, to a governor, we feel very happy. We feel that, you know what, I've handed my issues to someone who can make a change. Now imagine the king of all kings. Now you've handed your issues to Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala can resolve all of your problems. Allah Ta'ala can and Allah Ta'ala will resolve all of your issues. You must have that belief. If you don't have that belief, then you'll constantly wait for it. But you must have that belief that Allah Ta'ala is the being that will handle all of my affairs. Allah Ta'ala is the being that will resolve all of my issues. So now, to conclude, what should we do? What should we take home from all of this? How do we act on it? How do we practice on this tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala? So one of the most important things, one of the most important advices that the Prophet ﷺ gives us, as I mentioned in the beginning of the khutbah, which is to do istikhara, do mashwara, right? Do mashwara and then do istikhara. This is one of the things that we can take home. Right? This is one of the advices of Allah Ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ, that we do istikhara, that we do talab al-khayr, which is that we ask Allah Ta'ala for khayr in all of our affairs, all of our decisions, in every single one of our decisions. Many people, they misunderstand and they think istikhara is only for what? Marriage. Istikhara is only when you want to get married. Istikhara is not only for marriage, but istikhara is for all decisions. Anytime you want to make any decision, you make istikhara. Some people, they have misconception regarding istikhara. They think that you must do istikhara at night time. You must do istikhara before going to sleep. You must do istikhara and then not talk to anyone. You must see a dream after istikhara. All of this is wrong. Istikhara can be done at any time, during the day, during the night. It can be done. You can talk to people afterwards. You can do whatever you want. And it's not necessary to see a dream. But rather you do istikhara, and Allah Ta'ala, again, istikhara means talabul khayr. Istikhara means talabul khayr, meaning to ask goodness or to ask the help of Allah Ta'ala. And so we ask Allah Ta'ala forgiveness in all of our affairs, right? You do istikhara, you ask Allah Ta'ala for assistance. And all of us, if we have not memorized the dua of istikhara, you should memorize the dua of istikhara and go through the translation. Understand the translation. It's such a beautiful dua. Such a beautiful dua where we make dua to Allah Ta'ala. Oh Allah, you are the one who has all the knowledge and I have no knowledge. You are the knowledge of you are the knower of the unseen. You are the being that knows everything. I don't know anything. And long story, meaning the entire dua, you should go through the translation. But essentially it's that I don't know anything. I don't know the future. No one knows the future. Only Allah Ta'ala knows the future. And I hand over all of my affairs to you, Ya Allah. So if it's a big decision, whether it's a big decision or a small decision, whether it's buying a house or buying a pair of shoes, all of us should constantly turn to Allah Ta'ala. Whatever decision it is, always turn to Allah Ta'ala. Now yes, the ideal is what? The ideal is you pray 2 rak'at and then you recite the dua of istikhara. But even if you don't have that much time, then at the very least, you make the dua. At the very least, recite the dua. Even if you don't have enough time for that, make the short dua. Allahumma khidli wa akhtadli. Oh Allah, decide for me and Ya Allah, make it good. So that at least, at the very least, we recite this. Allahumma khidli wa akhtadli. Allah, make this decision good for me. At the very least, this is how we should live. That we constantly turn to Allah Ta'ala. We ask Allah Ta'ala for all of our affairs. We ask Allah Ta'ala to turn and help us in all of our decisions. I'll conclude with the hadith that Rasulullah speaks about. And he says, لَوْ أَنَّكُمْ تَتَوَكَّلُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ حَقَّ تَوَكُّلِكُمْ. So if you were to have proper tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala, if you were to have proper tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala, لَرَزَقَكُمْ كَمَا يَرْزُقُ الطَّيْرَ. Allah Ta'ala would provide for you just as He provides for the birds. تَغْدُو خِمَاسًا وَتَرُوحُ بِطَانًا. So the birds, they leave in the morning, empty stomach, and they come back in the evening with full stomach. It's not that they have a fridge at the nest or anything like that. Those of us, mashallah, who do this. But it's not like they have anything else. They leave, they have full tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala, and Allah Ta'ala takes care of them. You look at all of the animals, you look at the birds in the sky, you look at the fish in the sea. Allah Ta'ala is taking care of every single one of them. And if Allah Ta'ala can take care of all of them, Allah Ta'ala can take care of me and you. Money is no factor at the side of Allah Ta'ala. Health, everything. These are all things that Allah Ta'ala can change. So we constantly turn to Allah Ta'ala. We constantly make dua to Allah Ta'ala. We constantly have that tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala. And as I mentioned in the beginning, that we adopt the means and we have tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala. You don't ignore the means, but nor do you ignore Allah Ta'ala. But rather you adopt the means and you have full reliance on Allah Ta'ala. May Allah Ta'ala give me first, and Allah Ta'ala give us all the tawfiq to understand, and Allah Ta'ala grant us all proper tawakkul in Him. May Allah Ta'ala allow us all to have the full reliance on Him.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.